Boston Logan's Terminal E was unusually quiet for spring break season. The hum of rolling suitcases and distant boarding calls echoed in a space designed to whisper wealth. Malia Obama stood alone at Gate 47, her hands tucked inside the pockets of a sand-colored trench coat. She wore wire-frame glasses today. Something about them made her face feel less familiar to others. That was the point. The ticket in her hand read Aurelia Air, Seat 1A, embossed in the airline's signature navy in gold. First class, transatlantic to Zurich. She shifted her weight, eyes scanning the lounge. The other first-class passengers clustered in small, quiet groups, blazers and loafers, shawls and silk scarves, leather-bound briefcases. No one looked like her. She was used to that. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. Bon voyage. Be kind to the world. Call me when you land. Malia smiled faintly, then tucked the phone away. She wasn't nervous, but she wasn't at ease either. Traveling alone had always carried an edge, a current she could feel under her skin, especially in places where being seen too clearly could mean being judged too quickly. When the boarding announcement came, she stood. The gate agent, a woman with perfectly pressed hair and a clipped tone, scanned the next ticket ahead of her with a bright smile. "Mr. Ellison, welcome aboard." Then Malia stepped forward. The agent's smile froze just slightly. "Your ticket, miss." She offered it. The agent took it with both hands, looking from the pass to Malia and back again. Then she checked the screen. One moment, the woman turned to her computer. Her fingers hovered over the keys, as if searching for a reason to delay. "Do you have any ID?" Malia blinked. "It's international," the woman added quickly, as though that explained everything. Malia kept her tone even. "My passport was scanned to check in." "Yes, but just for security purposes, I'd like to verify." She handed over the passport. The agent opened it, paused. A flicker of recognition crossed her face. Nothing overt, just the slight compression of lips, the dart of eyes. "Oh, yes, of course. My apologies." Malia didn't respond. She took her documents back, walked through the gate, and onto the jet bridge. Her pace was steady, her posture calm, but inside a small thread pulled tight. This was how it always started. The smile before the double-take. The request before the reason. She wasn't angry. She wasn't even surprised. Just tired. As she reached the cabin door, a flight attendant greeted her with a bright, performative welcome. "Good afternoon, miss. First class is to your left." She already knew. Malia moved down the aisle, each step quiet on the carpet, each glance around her confirming what she already expected. No one here looked like her. A white woman in a navy pantsuit looked up from her tablet as Malia slid into seat 1A. Her eyes lingered, a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. Malia offered no smile back. She adjusted her seatbelt, laid the trench coat neatly over her lap, and stared ahead. The woman beside her leaned slightly toward the aisle and pressed her call button. The plane hadn't even left the ground. The chime of the call button was soft but deliberate. Within seconds, a flight attendant, young, blonde, polished, appeared beside seat 1B. "Yes, ma'am." The woman in the pantsuit lowered her voice, but not enough. "I think there's been a seating error," she said with the smooth confidence of someone used to being taken seriously. "I don't believe she's in the right section." Malia didn't flinch. Her eyes remained forward, fixed on the safety card tucked into the seat back pocket. She didn't need to listen. She already knew the script. The attendant's eyes flicked to Malia, then to her ticket, resting on the fold-out table beside her. The seat number, 1A, was clearly printed. "I see," the attendant said, voice neutral. "Let me double-check the manifest." Malia looked out the window, not because the view was interesting, just the bridge and the tarmac, but because looking away made her feel less like a specimen. She heard the tablet swipe, the artificial clicking of fingernails on screen. "Miss," the attendant said gently, "may I see your boarding pass again, just to confirm?" Malia turned, handed it over. The attendant scanned it again. "Thank you. I'll just be a moment." She walked away, the ticket still in hand. Malia's seatmate exhaled as if she'd solved a problem. The air felt thinner, more performative now. Everyone in the first-class cabin who hadn't been paying attention suddenly was. The kind of attention you don't get when you belong. The man across the aisle adjusted his newspaper but didn't read it. A couple 2 rows back paused their conversation. A teenage boy behind her nudged his father. Malia's stomach didn't turn. Not anymore. She'd learned to smother that reflex. The flight attendant returned. "You're all set," she said to Malia. "This is indeed your seat." She said like a verdict, like it wasn't obvious from the start. Then she turned to the woman in 1B. "Is there anything else I can help you with?" The woman blinked. "No, of course not. I was just trying to help avoid confusion." Malia said nothing. The attendant walked away. The woman beside her shifted uncomfortably, suddenly interested in her phone. Malia placed her ticket back on the table. Clean lines. Gold trim. Still hers. A silence followed. Strained. Uncertain. Slightly embarrassed. She could have said something. Could have asked what exactly about her presence had been so confusing. But that would have made the moment about her. And that wasn't what she wanted. Instead, she reached for her bag, pulled out a book, Between the World and Me, and opened it calmly to a marked page. If anyone noticed the title, they didn't say a word. By the time the cabin door closed and the plane began taxiing, the temperature had dropped a few degrees. Not literally, but in the way people leaned inward and avoided eye contact. Malia could feel like a shift in barometric pressure. The seatbelt sign chimed overhead. The woman in 1B hadn't said another word, but her energy was louder than any accusation. Malia kept her gaze forward as the aircraft lifted from the ground, pulling Boston into the sky behind them. Her hand rested on the armrest, steady. Inside, her pulse ticked with slow irritation. She shouldn't have to feel grateful just for being allowed to sit in the seat she paid for. An hour into the flight, drink service began. The attendant from earlier, name tag reading Lisa, arrived at row 1 with a smile that didn't quite fit her eyes. "Would you like something to drink?" she asked the woman in 1B. "I'll have a Chardonnay," came the crisp reply. Lisa turned to Malia. "Water," Malia said, "with lemon, if possible." Lisa nodded, took a beat too long to record it, then moved on. The woman beside her sipped her wine with theatrical nonchalance. "You know," she said softly, not turning her head, "I didn't mean to offend you earlier." Malia looked at her, expression unreadable. "I just thought you might be in the wrong seat," the woman continued. "It's happened before. Sometimes people get confused." "I wasn't confused," Malia said simply. A silence stretched. The woman's smile tightened. "It's just that first class, it's not for everyone." Malia blinked slowly. "Apparently. You don't have to be defensive," the woman added, laughing lightly. "I'm just trying to explain." "You don't have to explain anything," Malia interrupted, her voice calm but direct. "I know what this is." The woman stared at her, lips slightly parted. "I've done this dance before," Malia said. "It usually starts with concern, moves into clarification, and ends with civility masking discomfort." The woman said nothing. Malia turned back to her book, flipping a page she hadn't read yet. The line before her read, "I was made for the library, not the classroom." Her water arrived. "No lemon." She didn't ask again. Another hour passed. Dinner service began in row 2 and worked forward. When the cart reached Malia's row, Lisa offered options to the woman beside her first. "Chicken or pasta?" "Chicken," she said. Then she turned to Malia. "Oh, let me check the manifest. I think we had a limited meal count." Malia didn't flinch. "I reserved a vegetarian meal." Lisa gave a brief, apologetic shrug. It might not have made it on board. She moved on without confirming. The woman in 1B ate in silence. Malia leaned her head back against the seat and closed her eyes. She wasn't hungry anyway. 36,000 feet above the Atlantic, the cabin had settled into a muted rhythm. Screens glowed, cutlery clinked, and the soft hum of jet engines filled the silence. Malia sat with her tray table cleared, book closed, hands resting loosely in her lap. Across the aisle, a middle-aged man with gray temples glanced at her, then quickly looked away. Not the first glance he'd stolen. He hadn't said a word, but his eyes carried questions. Not curiosity, appraisal. She knew the type, someone who had built a life assuming every space he entered would affirm his place in the world. Her presence complicated that math. The seat beside her remained stiff with tension. The woman in 1B had kept her words to herself since the meal service, but her body language had grown colder, tighter, as though silence were a shield. Malia didn't try to thaw it. She wasn't interested in salvaging something that had never been mutual. She reached for her phone, not for messages, just for something to hold. No service, of course, but it was a tether. Her wallpaper glowed softly. A photo she'd taken of her father laughing, backlit by evening sun, hand over his face like something had caught him off guard. He hated that photo. She loved it. It reminded her that even legends had human moments. She swiped to her notes app, typed 3 words, always a seat, then paused. She deleted it. A memory surfaced unbidden. Her first flight alone, age 13, flying from Chicago to D.C. for a debate camp. She'd worn her best jeans, a sweater she loved, and a nervous smile. The gate agent had looked at her ticket, then looked at her, then at the ticket again. "Are you sure this is correct?" She remembered the way that it felt. Not like a mistake, like an accusation. Now, years later, she was still having the same conversation, only quieter, wrapped in practiced smiles and professional tones. From the row behind, a soft voice broke the lull. "Excuse me," said a man with an accent she couldn't place. "Sorry to interrupt." Malia turned. He was young, maybe early 30s, South Asian, dressed neatly in travel-wrinkled linen. He held out a small plate with an untouched appetizer, grilled vegetables and hummus. "I ordered 2 by mistake," he said gently. "Or maybe I didn't. Either way, you're welcome to it." Malia studied him. Kind eyes. No performance. She took the plate. "Thank you." He nodded and returned to his seat without waiting for approval or acknowledgement. The woman beside her said nothing. Didn't even glance over. Malia unfolded her napkin slowly, set the plate on her tray. She didn't eat right away. Just looked at the food. The quiet generosity of it. Some forms of dignity arrived without announcement. She picked up the fork. For the first time that flight, she was hungry. Turbulence rippled through the cabin, subtle at first, just enough to make drinks wobble and conversations pause. A few passengers gripped their armrests instinctively. Malia didn't move. She watched her water glass tremble slightly, then steady. The captain's voice came over the intercom, calm and practiced. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're passing through a mild weather system. Nothing to be concerned about. We'll resume service shortly." Seatbelt signs blinked on. Flight attendants moved quietly, securing carts and checking on passengers. Lisa returned to their row. "Please make sure your seatbelts are fastened." She leaned in closer to Malia, her voice soft. "If there's anything else I can get you, don't hesitate to ask." Malia looked up slowly. Something in the attendant's face had changed. More careful now, more cautious. As if some realization had begun to settle in, but hadn't yet formed words. "I'm fine," Malia said. Lisa hesitated, then nodded and stepped away. The woman in 1B broke the silence. "People are so sensitive these days." Malia turned her head slightly. "About everything," the woman said with a little laugh, as if that clarified things. "Seats, service, words, intentions. It's like you can't say anything anymore without someone being offended." Malia let the words hang there, untouched. "I mean," the woman went on, clearly emboldened by the quiet, "if we're not allowed to ask questions, how are we supposed to maintain any kind of order?" Malia blinked once. Slowly. "I think you're confusing order with control." The woman's expression shifted, caught between indignation and confusion. Malia turned her gaze back to the window. "You assumed I didn't belong here," she said evenly. "You didn't ask. You implied." The woman opened her mouth, but no sound came out. "Then when I didn't correct your assumptions, You made yourself the victim. I didn't mean. It doesn't matter, Malia said. You don't get to decide what I'm allowed to feel. The woman folded her arms, cheeks flushed. Across the aisle, the gray-templed man cleared his throat, loudly, but said nothing. Malia could feel eyes on her again, some furtive, some overt. It wasn't new. She had grown up watched. The only difference was what they thought they were seeing. She took a breath. Deep, deliberate. Her silence had never been weakness. It was discipline, choice. She opened her journal, pulled a pen from her bag, and wrote a single sentence. I've been sitting in the right seat my whole life. They just don't recognize the map. The cabin lights dimmed slightly as the flight began its slow arc toward descent. Zurich, just 90 minutes away, stirred to life beneath the clouds. The first-class cabin came alive with the rustle of stretch, the clink of tea service, and the hushed calculations of time zones and jet lag. Malia sat quietly, book closed, tray cleared, journal tucked away. The woman in 1B hadn't spoken since the last exchange. Her posture was stiff, spine straightened like someone clinging to the last of her decorum. A different attendant now, an older woman with silver-streaked hair and an accent hinting at the Midwest, passed by offering hot towels. Malia accepted hers with a nod. The woman in 1B declined. Then a voice, warm, inquisitive, and vaguely amused, floated in from across the aisle. So, said the gray-templed man who had been watching her all flight, what do your parents do? Malia turned her head slowly. He smiled, as if the question were a casual curiosity, as if it weren't loaded with assumption. She tilted her head slightly, returning his gaze. My father helped build this airline. The smile faltered. Oh, she nodded once, slow and deliberate. He's part of the private equity group that owns Aurelia. There was the shift, the recalibration, the hurried mental reorganization of how to place her. Well, the man said, trying to recover, that's impressive. Malia turned back to the window. It shouldn't have to be. Across the aisle, the attendant who had skipped her meal earlier approached again, a porcelain cup trembling slightly on its saucer. Would you like coffee before landing? Lisa asked, voice low, almost deferential now. Malia studied her face. The recognition was there now, subtle but unmistakable. She didn't ask how the woman knew. It didn't matter. Someone had said something, or someone had looked harder at the manifest. The moment had passed, but the power was still shifting. I'm fine, Malia said. Lisa nodded and stepped away. The woman in 1B shifted. You should have said something, she muttered. Malia turned to her, eyebrows slightly raised. If you told them who you were, the woman continued, this could have all been avoided. Malia's voice was soft. I didn't want to avoid it. I wanted it seen. The woman blinked. Malia returned her gaze to the window, watching the clouds peel away to reveal the distant outline of Zurich's lakes and rooftops. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all. Let them stumble over their own certainty. Let the truth arrive without announcement. Let them learn that silence, too, can be a kind of thunder. The plane touched down with a gentle thud, wheels kissing the Zurich runway beneath a pale gray sky. As the cabin swayed slightly and brakes whispered against the tarmac, Malia sat unmoving, composed, her gaze steady. She wasn't in a hurry. Not anymore. Around her, the ritual began. The rustle of seatbelts unfastened too early, the scuffle of designer shoes in the aisle, the soft jingle of carry-ons unlatched from overhead bins. No one made eye contact. When the chime released them, Malia stood slowly, reached for her small leather duffel, and stepped into the aisle. The woman from 1B didn't look at her, didn't speak. Her hands moved busily, pointlessly, folding a scarf that had never been unfolded. As Malia approached the aircraft door, the older flight attendant, the one with silver hair, stood waiting. Miss Obama, she said quietly, and for the first time used her name. Malia paused. I wanted to apologize, the woman said. On behalf of the crew. We didn't know. Malia tilted her head. You didn't need to. The woman opened her mouth to speak again, but Malia had already moved past. At the end of the jet bridge, two figures waited. A man in a slim charcoal suit with a discreet earpiece, and a woman in a navy blazer who held herself like someone trained not to blink under pressure. They stepped forward without ceremony. "Miss Obama, welcome to Zurich," the man said, offering no smile. "Your car is ready." Malia nodded. No one else in the corridor seemed to notice the quiet choreography. That was the point. Everything had been arranged, not because she asked, but because certain machines kept moving, even when you wanted to be small. The driver, waiting just beyond customs, greeted her by name. The town car was warm, quiet, and smelled faintly of cedar. As they pulled onto the road, her phone buzzed. She checked it. A voicemail. "Dad." She put in one earbud and pressed play. His voice was low and familiar, the kind that had once read bedtime stories and later walked her through campaign maps like fairy tales. "Hey, Malia, I know you probably don't want to talk right now, and that's okay. I heard from the board liaison. Word travels." A pause. The soft sound of papers rustling. "I just wanted to say you didn't have to say anything." That's a kind of strength a lot of folks don't understand. Sometimes it's not about proving who you are. It's about letting the moment prove them wrong. Another pause. "I'm proud of you. Always." She closed her eyes for a second. Let the words settle. Then she opened her journal again, pen already in hand. This time, the words came easily. The car glided through the streets of Zurich, past quiet stone facades and orderly intersections, the city unfolding like a whispered secret. Malia sat in the back seat, one hand resting on the journal in her lap, the other still holding her pen. Outside, the world moved with gentle precision. Inside, her thoughts clicked sharper. She wasn't angry. Not anymore. What she felt was harder to name, a kind of stillness earned by endurance, not peace. In her journal, she wrote slowly. "They didn't see me, so they tried to erase me. But erasure only works if you stop showing up." She underlined the last three words. The car curved along the lake. A cafe slid into view, its outdoor tables arranged in perfect rows, empty in the morning chill. A young black woman walked by, headphones on, coat buttoned to her chin, eyes focused forward. She moved like she had somewhere important to be. Malia watched her pass, then looked away. She thought about all the rooms she'd entered in her life, all the faces that had hesitated just slightly too long, all the people who smiled wide while their eyes narrowed. She had never shouted her way into acceptance. She had learned to carry herself with the kind of poise that unsettled people who preferred chaos. And yet, sometimes, even that wasn't enough. Her phone buzzed again, another message from her mother. "You don't owe the world explanations. Just your truth. Red heart." She smiled faintly, then closed the journal. The car pulled to a stop in front of the hotel. The driver opened her door without fanfare. She stepped out onto the cobbled street, her breath visible in the cool air. The doorman greeted her warmly. "Welcome, Miss Harper." She raised an eyebrow. That name again, the alias they use for travel, for quiet. But she didn't correct him. Not today. Inside, the lobby was golden and quiet. She moved through it like she belonged, because she did. At the elevator, she caught her reflection in the brass panel. Steady eyes, unbothered shoulders, quiet power. The door slid shut. She didn't need to say anything more. Not every legacy is loud. Some are written in posture, in refusal, in stillness that withstands scrutiny. The truth had already landed, long before the plane ever did.